Welcome back to Football Daily, ladies and gentlemen, because of course we have some breaking news. It's official, Dukes. See you later. Cristiano Ronaldo, he is officially leaving Manchester United. Manchester United have put out a statement saying that Cristiano Ronaldo is to leave Manchester United by mutual agreement. Cristiano Ronaldo's statement, which was sent on WhatsApp, says something very similar. They're both very short. Not a lot of love there. Correct decision?
Yeah, I think Ronaldo's probably got what he wanted when he went into that interview with Piers Morgan and just spouted a lot of rubbish against the club, against his manager, against former teammates. Came across as a guy who was more interested in his own personal success and fame than anything to do with the team, as has been his way for the last few years. Do United fans care? Probably not particularly. He's launched it in the middle of a World Cup when everyone's focus is elsewhere. People thought Messi had a bad day against Saudi Arabia. Ronaldo's just been let go by the club without much of a fanfare. And this is a supposed legend of the side. You know, it's up for people to debate whether you still classify him as a legend of Man United. I'd have a lot of difficulty loving him the way that he's acted in the last few months. I do have certain sympathies, like clearly United have been slightly stuck in their ways for the last 10 years. He probably raised some good points, but there's a way to do it. There's a way to manage it. And ultimately he's got what he wanted. As to where he goes next, I've got absolutely no idea.
I know. It's incredibly difficult to see where he goes next. I agree. But yeah, from a Manchester United fan's perspective, absolutely the right decision to terminate the contract. I think the amount of wages United are going to save over the second half of the season, I think adds up to about £15 million, which is not a small amount. But United are going to have to bring a striker in, 100%. We're going to discuss that in a little bit. As for his next destination, I think what Man United have been quite clever about here is they've said, OK, you don't want to be here. And you can't, and we couldn't find your club in the summer. You go and find your own club now. And I'm looking at these Champions League clubs here. I've got the list in front of me because obviously it's well publicised that he wants to join a club in the Champions League. PSG, don't see it.
Not happening.
Bayern Munich seem to have ruled themselves out. Tottenham, I can't imagine that. Chelsea.
I mean, it's probably the more likely of the English clubs, definitely. I mean, it's the only one I can see him going to in England. Yeah, there's potential there, but then Todd Boehly, you know, it was so unpopular with Tuchel, it caused a permanent rift. And Tuchel left. I don't think Graham Potter, Cristiano Ronaldo doesn't seem like a Graham Potter type forward. He likes versatile forwards that can play in a variety of positions. Can't really see that, if I'm being totally honest.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, they've basically brought in the whole Brighton recruitment department. I don't think Brighton were looking to recruit Cristiano. I've seen him heavily linked with Napoli as well, as we saw in the summer. They're obviously, of course, still in the Champions League, but one of the most exciting young front lines in world football right now. Do Napoli want to take a problem like Cristiano on with those wages?
They definitely don't. I mean, if Victor Osimhen was for some bizarre reason set to leave in January, and we'll probably get onto him when we talk about Man United potential incomings, but they've got Giovanni Simeone who's hit the ground running there. They've got Giacomo Raspadori who's come in and really made a difference off the bench as well. They can play Lozano centrally if they had to. They've got plenty of options. They're strolling to a Serie A title as it stands. I think they're 8 points clear. Why would they jeopardise squad harmony and bring in a player that is solely about himself?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of the other Italian sides, Milan, given they've already got Giroud and Zlatan, do they want to add another?
Well, they'll add another to the retirement park, I suppose, that they've got ongoing there. But yeah, can they afford his wages? Probably not. They've really, prioritised signing young players with high sell-on value in the last few years, the likes of Tomori, Kalulu, Brahim Diaz. It's just totally against their transfer policy. And that's the same for a lot of these clubs, like Dortmund.
100%.
Doesn't make any sense for them either. The only club that you could probably be from around Europe that might be interested for some bizarre reason would probably be Bayern Munich, but I just don't think they're going down that route.
Yeah, and we've seen the German press over the last couple of weeks pretty heavily denying the rumours that he was being linked there, and that officials had supposedly met Jorge Mendes and Cristiano Ronaldo in London. They obviously said no, that never ever happened. And then, yeah, you look at the other teams. I don't see Real Madrid taking him. There's no way Liverpool, Man City are going to take him. Leipzig probably aren't aimed towards that style of player, are they? Club Brugge aren't affording the wages. Benfica or Porto, it would be a big kick in the face for Sporting fans, wouldn't it, if he went to one of those? Not that I think he would massively care, I'll be honest with you. Given the way we've seen it end at Manchester United and him nearly joining Manchester City, I don't think he'd have a massive issue going to a Benfica or a Porto. But again, it comes down to the wages. I think he's going to really struggle to find a club that's playing Champions League football that wants to not only take on a 37-year-old on massive wages, but also wants to take on the off-the-field problems that come with him. These sort of last 3 to 4 weeks have not endeared himself to a potential new club owner, and definitely not to a potential new club manager.
Yeah, 100%. And clubs operate in a 2 to 3 year cycle in terms of transfers. They budget, they've got plans, carefully laid out plans for who they bring in and when, how much they can afford to spend on each player in terms of wages and transfer fees, and whatever his wages are, £580,000 per week or whatever it is. That's just not, suitable in an environment where a lot of these top European clubs are still recovering from COVID. Like we saw with the European Super League last year, these clubs are desperate for money. It's pretty unlikely that one of them will be like, oh, suddenly we've got £500,000 a week sitting around ready to sign Ronaldo.
Yeah, absolutely. And we should bring on to Manchester United, because obviously United are already short in the striking department, aren't they? Given that Anthony Martial is perennially injured, isn't he? Marcus Rashford has spent time playing through the middle, but beyond those two, there's no real other options unless you were to call on some youngsters like Charlie McNeil from the academy, or maybe you play Garnacho through the middle or mix it up somehow. So surely United look to sign a striker in January with the saved wages, which is, believed to be about £15 million. But do United go for one of their principal targets and look to move what would have been a summer signing to January, or do they go for another stopgap? Because they've gone for stopgap after stopgap after stopgap over the years, from Ighalo to Falcao to Cavani. Do they finally look to get the young striker through the door, or do they just go for another stopgap?
I don't know. I don't know what their finances are. It's difficult to say at this stage, but, the likes of Vlahovic or Osimhen, two strikers that have done really well in Serie A over the last 18 months. Victor Osimhen in particular this season, top scorer in Serie A. He'll be someone that Man United are definitely looking at. Will Napoli sell him in January? I really struggle to imagine that, because they could even have a deep Champions League run with the way they're going. Definitely. Only one defeat so far this season. So I'm thinking it might have to be just through circumstance. I don't think it would be Ten Hag or United's dream plan, but maybe a stopgap. I was writing about someone recently for a scout report, actually lining them up for Arsenal, becoming the third choice striker there. He plays for Udinese, he's called Beto. He was doing well in Portugal, he's adapted really well to Serie A, used to coming off the bench and contributing late in games as well. Maybe that's someone they'd look at, but for now, it's really difficult to see who they bring in January. So he slightly left Man United a little bit short as well, but I think they'll just be delighted to get rid of the circus, really.
Yeah, I agree. I think United will look to go for a short-term option and then identify their number one target next summer, be that Victor Osimhen, Vlahovic. We've also seen Joao Felix linked, haven't we, recently, who I don't think is a realistic January target alongside those players. They're just going to cost too much money. And United spent so much money in the summer. We're talking £200+ million. I think a lot of that budget probably did come from the January window as well, maybe even next summer. So I think a stopgap option is almost nailed on. Who that is, I really have no idea. There's not many around Europe that you look at and you think, oh, he's out of contract in the summer, or maybe he's available on loan. Because these clubs, if you've got a goal scorer who's at a decent sort of level, aren't letting them go on loan. Yeah. And if they're available on a free transfer in the summer, there's going to be a lot of interest. So do Manchester United have to pay more to get him in that January window? It's very interesting. I'm not sure where they go, to be honest with you, but I overall think this was the right decision. Yeah. Usually terminate the contract. Just to wrap it all up, I think we can both agree that to terminate the contract now was the right decision, as long as they didn't have to pay him up for the rest of his contract. It appears that isn't the case, and Manchester United are going to be able to not only let Cristiano Ronaldo leave, but save the wages. Just a final word, and what do you think Erik ten Hag will be thinking about all of this?
I mean, he's handled this situation, I'd say, pretty well, to be honest. I think he's been pretty respectful in public, which is what I really disagreed with in Ronaldo's meeting with Piers Morgan or interview with Piers Morgan, really saying he doesn't respect him. I think he's been incredibly respectful for a guy that, had supposed family issues in the summer. Fair enough, that's really difficult, but didn't go on pre-season, struggled for his fitness in the early parts of this campaign, has played quite poorly, refused to come off the bench, left Old Trafford early, etc. Everyone knows the role list of what he's done wrong this year. So I think Ten Hag has handled this really well. He doesn't really fit his style of play. I don't think it's a major issue for Man United going forward. There will, of course, be some naysayers. If United do an Arsenal from last year and finish 2 points, short of the Champions League, which could hypothetically happen, maybe it comes down to the final few games, people will be like, oh, should they have sold Ronaldo in January or let him go? But then you've also got to look at the flip of the coin, like Arteta did that last year with Aubameyang. Exactly. Look how much happier the squad is now without Aubameyang. And it feels like next year under Ten Hag, which really feels like the first proper year of him, United could maybe achieve something they haven't for a while and challenge for a trophy and maybe compete in the Premier League or Champions League.
Yeah, absolutely. But what do you guys at home think of the news that Manchester United have officially, mutually terminated Cristiano Ronaldo's contract? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, hit subscribe. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you later. Bye.